Ladies and gentlemen, how very pleasant it is to be here this afternoon with two of the heroes of the representational art movement, Odd Nerdrum and Roger Scruton. Welcome. Odd Nerdrum is regarded by many as one of the greatest living representational painters of the 21st century. He is famous for his allegorical images of refugees adrift in an inhospitable Icelandic landscape, which was the home of the artist during his self-imposed exile from his Norwegian homeland. The themes of exile and homelessness emerges repeatedly in his work, in his paintings of the efforts of his cast of characters to find comfort in their journeys, in their solitary sufferings and their struggles with each other, their fears and feelings of alienation and strangeness. But Nerdrum is more than a painter. He's also written about his ideas about how representational painting can no longer be called art, claiming the word kitsch as a title for what he sees as the truth of paintings and sculptures that tug at the heart, instead of being exclusively focused on concept. This is the art of emotional engagement, the emergent experience that happens when we recognize shared consciousness in an image. The philosopher Roger Scruton is well known among us for his incisive book Beauty, which explores this timeless concept, asking what makes an object beautiful. But he's perhaps best known for his BBC Two television show Why Beauty Matters, which caused a flurry of interest and some controversy when it was first released. Scruton graduated from Cambridge University. Later, he taught part-time at Boston University while building a public affairs consultancy in Eastern Europe. Since then, he has been a freelance writer and consultant. He's currently a visiting professor at Oxford University, where he's also a fellow at Blackfriars Hall and a senior fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center in Washington, D.C. We want to hear more about Odd Nerdrum's ideas on painting and Roger Scruton's ideas about fakery and kitsch, and we'll have a discussion upon contemporary representational aesthetics. I'm going to ask three questions to open discussion. We'll take them one at a time, and I'm going to ask Odd and Roger to respond to each question individually and then open it up for discussion between the two. So let's begin with the first question. How would you distinguish fake art from real art? Odd, I'd like you to respond. Roger has spoken about fakery already, so we want Odd to respond to start off.
Yeah. Thank you very much that I had the opportunity to come here. I have to say that for me, this is a little door beside the big door when you go to heaven. So, I feel so wonderfully treated here. So I have to thank you very much for that, and I begin here. There is a lot of people, not a lot, one or two, that had said something about kitsch and classicism, Greco-classicism today. So I feel that I'm the third wheel on the wagon. And I will try to describe some people I met, what they said. And when I went to Iceland, I met a man. I didn't know anything about him, but I heard that he was the Pope of Art. And that was Mr. Arthur Danto. And I should meet him to have a discussion with him. So we met in a big mason, and there was a lot of art historians there. They were in some ways in his hand. It was just like they were clay in Mr. Danto's hand. So, well, they said yes, you see. So I began to answer Danto, a Socratic way to do it, because when you answer, you get answers, and that can be very interesting. So I said to him, why is it not allowed to paint a weeping boy? Why is that so wrong in the art? Couldn't that be fine to paint it or make something out of a weeping boy? And he said, like a school teacher, it's not allowed to do that now. And I said, but what about the embracing? Two people embracing each other. No, it's not allowed for that either. Later, or I have to say a long time before, I'm sorry, in 1963 in the Academy, a new man, he should be a pupil, he's coming into the room where there is a nude sitting there, and he's 30 years old. And when he look at the nude, he has his easel here and his painting box here, he says, oh, what a wonderful ass. What a wonderful belly. Oh, look at that. All this, what do you call this here? and the model was very grumpy and turned her head and said, he can't be a real artist. And here we are in the problem. He can't be a real artist because he thought she was so lovely. So I have here what Friedrich Hegel says about it. He is one of the pillars of art. The Germans has the same upper hand in the history about visual art as the Americans had, or perhaps still have, the power in the world. The main power, as you can say, for example, an American soldier, he is trained to shoot everything that looks like a Rembrandt portrait. That means the Taliban soldier, okay? With his turban. And an art historian is trained up to kill all pictures that looks like a Rembrandt. So they are trained in a special direction. And the art historian institute in the university has the same power about aesthetics as the American soldiers have in the world today. Well, probably they have greater or bigger power, even bigger than that. Well, Hegel said, what is achieved in the classical art form is a completely unity between the sensual and the spiritual component of the artwork because they correspond with each other. But this blending actually makes it so that the spirit is not presented according to its terms. Spirit is in fact the ideas infinite subjectively, and this does not come freely expressed as absolute sincerity when it must conform to a bodily sensual figure. I'm sorry, I don't read it well, but that tells us that what he says is that the spirit don't like to be in contact with the body. Like I told about that man that was so fond of that beautiful nude that I had painted when I was 19 years old. And that tells a lot about her, the model. she has never read anything of Hegel, but she knew the program of Hegel through the atmosphere. You know, like Christmas time, there is an atmosphere there. Everybody thinks about Christmas and have a lovely time with Christmas, and they think Christmas 1 week. And it's a little bit the same. She didn't know that Hegel has trained her to say he can't be a real artist if you like that sensuality. Of course not. But it lies in the air. And that's quite gloomy in some ways. Who has done this? It must be a lot of network that create such a misery. And I have seen, for example, a nude of Zorn, Anders Zorn. I think you know about him. He's more or less the same as Sargent, but he had, after all, quite ordinary sexuality. So he was after girls all his life. In spite of Sargent, naturally. Zorn made beautiful nudes with everything was fine, and I'm sure that this nudes has made many men happy after all, and also made their valets happy. So in that time, he was recognized as one of the most highest paid painters in the world. But today it's not the same. For example, a nude of Zorn, and then you have a nude of Matisse. The one is provided by the art rules and get 100 times more money for it, and also more honor for it. So a bad nude with no sexual atmosphere of Matisse has a greater position in the museums, the curators, everything, than Zorn. And that is the art rules. That's how it works. And you can hope as much as you want when you stay in front of a nude and think, this nude will be so fantastic. This will be my success. But stop here. More and more, if you make a nude better and better, you are sinking in the mud. Like a piece of, a gold, what's called, yes, something of gold. So the art police is a university problem. In a book from 1948, that was a book I had as a child. It was a little red book, just like Mao's red little book. And it was in 1948. And in that book, they write that who has really made the laws for modern art is Mr. Kant, Immanuel Kant. But the man that wrote it say that this can be dangerous in the future. This was in 48. Because on that it states, what is eunuch? Eunuchs in American means that a man with no sex organ? What? Eunuch. Okay. That can be dangerous. That can be dangerous, you see. Mr. Kant's ideas can be dangerous because then only eunuchs has the right to paint female nudes. And just vegetarians has the right to paint slaughter scenes of animals. And just pacifist has the right to paint battle scenes. So, I can tell you another thing here. In Metropolitan, an African-American curator from the Modern Wing. She was there. We were in a party. We talked about art and aesthetics. It was really nice. I asked her, what is lacking in modern art? I mean, what has been thrown away? Well, she said, maybe there is something, but I like modern art. What do you think is lacking? Her eyes were anxious. She couldn't wait for my response. Well, I said, and this is before we knew anything about Kitsch problems. Well, I said, what about Timeless Sunset? She shook her head. That is far from art. Oof. Warm, wonderful skin and a sensible face with eyes engaging you. Oh, too sentimental, she said. Fine craftsmanship. I would say more than that, poetic craftsmanship. What, she asked, astonished. A loving couple sitting on a bench. Inconceivable, she explained. A woman nude and wonderful when her eyes say, come, my love. And then she laughed, but this is kitsch. From then I understood what I really was.
Thank you, Ard. Roger, would you like to comment?
Well, that was a very, very interesting narrative, and it leaves me without very much to say, because I totally agree with the attitude from which Odd comes, his outlook on the situation that we've inherited, the situation that we've inherited, not just because of modernism and postmodernism and all that, but especially because of people like Arthur Danto, who have assumed the right to police the concept of art from a position outside it. And I think that is really where we have to resist what has been imposed on us. Part of the trouble, and I think this came out in what I was saying 2 days ago, or was it 2 days ago? No, yesterday. And part of the trouble is that works of visual art can be owned, and so a premium attaches to the question which of them is real and which is a fake. The fake, something revealed to be a fake, loses its value immediately, overnight. And if somebody has paid $1 million for this fake, he feels cheated. So there has to be an industry which creates some authentication of what is a real work of art and what is not. And that's the industry of critics, and especially in America, the philosophers of aesthetics, who provide the tools with which you can distinguish real art from fake art without ever having experienced any emotion towards either. It's something which just goes through the system, and you can come up with the answer, and then the investor knows which he should buy. And I think this is one of the distressing things about the visual arts. My feeling is that it helps to look at the world of music and literature and compare what is said there, because there people can't make claims of ownership. You can't buy a symphony. You can buy the score, but you can't buy the symphony, and you can't have it as your exclusive possession. So there is no market. There's no market in modern music, and there's no real market in modern literature. It all depends upon the judgment of people who are actually interested in these things. It doesn't mean that there aren't fakes. And again, there's the whole network of critics who are relied upon to give criteria which will enable you to discriminate the real forward-going work of music which is relevant to our time from the backward-looking, cliche-ridden fake. These people would have no power if it weren't for the fact that the state subsidizes concerts. You know, there's a whole public subsidy machine which is directed towards modern music. And again, the Arthur Danto types have dominated the discussion, so that in a concert of modern music, it is obligatory that the modern bit, sandwiched between two things that you can listen to, is of the extreme avant-garde, and usually confined to some 20 minutes maximum because of the natural feelings of the audience. But that is something which is introduced by the subsidy machine and not really by the fact that people can own things. So we have a very different situation, and just as you in this room are rebelling against the art world and trying to reaffirm the values that people like Arthur Danto regarded as completely dépassé, I think there is a similar reaction in the world of music, and people are trying to say that they're trying to write music which makes sense to them and which has a meaning and which conveys emotions to the listener of a kind that the listener would want to have. And I think this is again, this is something that's happening, and it means that we are trying to, I would say, we're trying to re-establish an idea of real art, which isn't simply an idea of progressive art which is breaking through boundaries or challenging the status quo. There might be real art produced today which doesn't challenge the status quo, or challenges only the status quo of the art world, but doesn't challenge what ordinary people feel. And I think that is a positive thing.
Look here. I heard what you said, but we have to find a solution here. In the classic world, when they made hospitals, there was a man named Galen. He's quite famous from Rome, and we get a sort of a good sight to see what is going on there. He made one clinic for infection and one clinic for the surgery. And they should never have contact with each other. Because if the infection house, the people there, come to the surgeon house, it would be a mess in the surgeon house and everybody will die of typhus or something. So for me, it's just like in the infection house is the art house, because art is in some way infective. It changes, it can go to AIDS, to syphilis, or to everything, strange things can happen with infections. So it's a very, very unstable situation. On the other side, you have the surgeon. And the surgeon, he shall operate something that is of flesh and blood. So that's very important, that the infection people shall not begin to roaming around this house with surgeon, where they shall save lives with the knife, okay? So what I have written here about Aleksborg, Swedish painter, what is the very cornerstone of Europe then? The Greco-Roman culture. This is what has made us humanists, where knowledge is our greatest source of pleasure. Then we have the dominant contemporary branch, which calls for an art that analyzes our minds, opening a door for the psychological things. The search for a new language. Look here, I'm not talking any badly about these things. I try to get it objective here. The search for a new language on that debate itself. These are two completely different directions. The Greco-Roman individual takes pleasure in viewing and understanding an object, while an art individual seeks to reveal the reason for how and why they are personally affected by the object. Here, then, are two distinct courses of study. Potentially, they could function side by side, parallel studies, each pursuing their own discipline. So, these houses is what I'm talking about. The one must not have reason to infect the other. So, if you had two parallel studies in this aesthetic in the university, you have the classic, Roman classic, which are our natural background, just like the Sames in the north has their reindeer and lives in their background with their joke, oh, like that. They have their background, but we have lost our background. We are singing songs, or not me, but in general, singing songs that come from Jamaica or from Africa, somewhere else in some ways, some rhythm that's not typical European. Okay. What I'm talking about is that if we shall get rid of this nightmare that keeps, this is so beautiful, so we have to listen, okay? It's really beautiful. I shall never forget that. So, there you have two disciplines, and this is serious. It has to be established, one for the Greco-Romanian, which is the ground floor in European culture, in the Western culture. If it is a Western university, then the Chinese can have for their special interest, for example, Asian universities. But the point here is that if they get the same quality, the same professors, you see, and get the same building in some ways, then something can happen. Then we can see a better time. Before that happens, will this dominance be so crucial against us all? And you want to live like slaves the rest of your life? I know that America is a better place than Europe, but in Europe, we that paints like this is living like Hell's Angels or something like that. And this is not a joke. This is serious. They are on us all the time, attacking in many variations. If some of us comes a little bit up, they get us down quickly. So we are talking about a big, big, big mafia that rules us, and we are laughing and say we have our own feelings and we can live with that. We are so superior. We don't care about this. But I care about it because I have seen so many people dying, have a bad life. Many of my generation has died in so hopeless situations. And all the artists are still alive. All these people that has been rude with us, they are still alive. They have a happy time because they get a lot of prizes. But 75 about my friends, that was my friends. They are dead. So we are also talking about a health problem here. And they tried to make wonderful things. They were landscape painter. They wasn't so braggy as me. I mean, boom, like that, you see? They were more decent, like many of you. And therefore, if things shall flower really not flower, that's the wrong plant, grow, it has to be a fundamentally change. They tried that with me in the academy in Oslo. There was a minister that had that strange feeling that something was terribly wrong. And he tried, but he didn't succeed because the art historians was so strong and hateful. And what about that? Can you think about that, Roger? Is it possible to get an institution with art historians that thinks in another way? For example, in a way, we must stop to talk about dead traditions, because this is not a dead tradition. The Greek-Romanian culture is hanging all over us. We see it every corner. There is columns from Greeks, you see. And we see a Rembrandt portrait, late Rembrandt's portrait, just the same as Socrates. And that is a tradition. And everybody that doesn't follow that tradition, is fading out into masks. You see, masks. So it's very, very urgent now to find a constructive solutions.
I think that we're talking about vested interests and people whose social position and financial position and authority in society generally depends upon having accepted all the myths of modernism and postmodernism. And they form an elite. They have taken over our universities, the humanities departments, they've taken over the museums, and on the whole, the journalists, art journalists have to kowtow to them too. It's very rare that somebody stands up and defies them, and they have the power essentially to silence that person, or at least to move on from him and say, you know, he's an eccentric, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And I think the big question in my mind is, how do you break into a circle like that, a circle of people who are sustaining their own privileges through a complicitous fake, you know, through pretending that they are experts about something which they probably don't really understand and don't have an interest in understanding. You know, that is a very difficult question. It's again, I look to the case of music, where there is in all musicians a sense that in the end they've got to have an audience. They've got to communicate beyond the realm of their fellow professionals and fellow composers to those people out there who will take time to go to a concert, or who will at least want to listen to you playing with your friends and so on. And there is that sense that there is another criterion to which you can address your art. And of course this is beautifully dramatized by Wagner in Die Meistersinger, in which he describes the little town of Nuremberg, where the musical culture has gone rotten with academic specialisms, and has lost all ability to communicate to the people, and the rules and the conventions are all ossified and cold and barren. And into this little community comes the new musician, the interloper, who has a new song of his own. And how can that song get accepted? Eventually, the plot is a complicated plot, but you know, he manages to get the townspeople on his side. They sing along with his music at the end and sweep away these cobwebs of the old academic way of composing, and the new music then is absorbed and accepted. And I think that's really what you are doing, Odd. I don't think it's necessary to do what you do and appropriate the word kitsch to describe it. What you mean by that is that you are trying to communicate directly with an artistic public, a public for whom these things are valuable and have a meaning, so you can bypass all this privileged elite of people who maintain their hold over the financial and institutional center of the art world. What one has to do is to try and authenticate that appeal to the people without falling into the trap of appealing to what is cheapest and easiest in the people. You've got to be, at the same time as appealing to them, bringing them out of their own slobbish habits. You know, and you can't say that in America, but you know, in Norway you can say it.
I'm coming here with a skyline, with a medlark, and I can't present the medlark for a snobbish parliament. I know that. If you know what a medlark is, no. A medlark was some small boys under the bridges in London, and they had no parents, so they were totally lost in some ways. And they were roaming around under the bridges in the mud to find perhaps some silver coins, perhaps a gold coin or something, and they robbed the dead corpus very often. And they could take their wallet from them, and they could have a little life on these things. And Kitsch is a mud lark. And that's why we found that word, because it is a mudlark. And it expresses also exactly what a Kitsch human are. They are searching for a gold standard in their life. They can't live on illusions like this grand artist. They have to know where they are. It's very, very important. So a medlark is a very interesting figure when we talk about Kitsch, but to go to the parliament with a medlark, I understand. That doesn't work. But if Roger Scruton goes to the parliament and talk about Poundsbury in the beginning, and then begin to say that we need some places where the young people can get a new understanding about our culture or background. Oh, I think there is a lot of lords there that will be catched up in these things. I am not afraid on your behalf. I think you can fix it if you want. But do you want?
I have to say, you know, I look back over 50 years of attempting to influence British politics in the kind of directions in which I think it should go, and the only reward of this is that I'm a pariah. I'm regarded as an embarrassment if I enter a party in London which is full of the establishment left who've just made some big decision which is going to be enacted in Parliament tomorrow, you know. I'm afraid it's just the same in Norway, of course. There is that, you know, we know that there are establishments in politics just as there are in art, and they tend to be the same or linked together. But I think they're linked together because they have a shared interest in replacing real standards with fake standards. Fake standards can easily be managed and applied. Real ones require judgment.
I understand. But I mean, next time these people ask you, is there a solution? Is there something you can do? What do you will answer them now after this?
I would
still is no.
No, I would say exactly what I think you would say, which is that you must build things of your own, outside the control of the existing establishment. You know, we're dealing with vested monopolies, aren't we? The museum world, the art historical world, the university world, and they all have an interest of closing ranks against the real challenge, because the real challenge might show that they are frauds, or some of them. You know, so that the only thing, surely, the only thing is to start new things, and this is an example of something which is starting, isn't it? Which, with any luck, will grow, and perhaps some in America. You know, when things start growing, there are all kinds of innocent millionaires who come along and give money, and you might end up with a building and a place where people come, for courses and produce your own degrees. And you have the tradition of the liberal arts college, which allows you to provide your own qualifications and not listen to the establishment. Unfortunately, we in Europe cannot offer degrees without getting endorsed by the very people we're trying to confront. But that's a problem that we have to deal with.
Okay. Because I understand that authorities will not go, but in otherwise, I think that's the only way you can change it, because we can talk about it, we can cry out, you can have a nice time and blah blah, but that doesn't work. That doesn't work. There must be something that can be done. I have heard from the Underhouse and our house that there is quite smart people here and there.
Taking this as a great encouragement to the ateliers and to TRAC, that we must keep working to create our own institutions and keep doing things just like this. Have you got any philosophical ideas that are going to help us to drive this?
Well, only those which I have tried to express already. I think it is important to regain confidence in the idea of beauty and in the idea of aesthetic value generally, to try and put across that we're dealing with a realm which is not a realm of arbitrary choices and subjective opinions, but a realm of the common pursuit of true judgment, as T.S. Eliot put it, where we're trying to find values that we can share and which relate to our lives as human beings, the values which actually make it worthwhile to engage in artistic production and incorporate that artistic production into our ordinary lives in a way which transfigures them. And I think Alan Lawson said something very important yesterday about the redemptive character of art. That it isn't just enough to produce things which are pleasant to look at, or or even to produce things which have some kind of meaning or some mysterious power over you. The thought is much more that you should be able to go to art with the burden of your own life and in some way be redeemed by it. That it, as it were, imparts to that life the value which you're looking for by reflecting into it something of a higher version of itself or whatever. And I think that idea, that philosophical idea, is one which Alan expressed from the painter's point of view, but I think it probably is my role, if I have one remaining, to try and give a philosophical exposition of it. Yeah.
I think that train is very slow. I can't understand this. I think there is something very strange. I remember when I had a show in 1998, and I declared myself expended because I asked for forgiveness because I called myself an artist. I felt that I had done something terribly wrong. You see, that's the same as you have a John Wayne movie, and all the boys that goes out of the John Wayne movie, they walk like, John Wayne. And so it's also when you read Kant, because I read Kant when I was 20 years or something, and I couldn't stand, there was this Italian, I couldn't know what his name is, power philosopher. Oh. Now, Machiavelli, yes. I couldn't stand him, so I throw it down. I throw it in the garbage. I couldn't stand to read such things, so I was quite naive. I thought that the philosophy should be nice in some ways. So I read Kant, and I was so dedicated to him, especially when he talked about the genius. And then I was just the same as people seeing a John Wayne film and goes out like that. Because the point here was that all the thing he said was bang, 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 bang. I kill you, I kill you, I kill you, I kill you, I kill you. So when I come there in that opening to the exhibition, blah, blah, the art historians was extremely angry. And one said, you have to accept your place in the art hierarchy. Just like a slave in a castle have a whip me down, you see? It was horrible. And the artists didn't understand what I said because they are mostly not very intellectual. So they, what? Like that? But the art historians knew that this was extremely dangerous. I didn't understand how dangerous it was. So there was a man that went to me, he was an art historian and an art sociologue, and he said, Duchamp made a hand grenade, but you made an atom bomb. And they will never excuse that. A hand grenade is okay. It's just like you have to have a little bit bang bang sometimes. But an atom bomb, we don't like that. That is very serious. Therefore, it's very, very important. And my pupil, Jan Ove Tuv, he was the first pupil I had that didn't laugh when he saw a modern artwork. And I was so happy with that because I never laugh, because I know that art is dangerous. Art people are dangerous. They have their spies. And they are not very nice if you don't follow the rules. And we have to be open-minded to understand that this is more dangerous than we can understand. As long as we paint small landscapes and keep busy down on the floor, it's okay. But don't try to do more than that. And that man asked me, what in hell, what are you doing here? Are you totally crazy? What do you want with your life? You can never get fame, you can never get social, be one of the gang in some ways in that art society. It's terribly difficult to paint like that. You will do a lot of thoughts. And you will never be really rich because you can't be really rich because the economic system isn't. So why do you do this? Why do you do these difficult and dangerous things? And I said, I can't answer you. And he said, don't try with any sentimental thing like I want to find myself and all this talk that people use. I want to find the spirit, I want to find the time, something that is here but is not here, and all these things. So I was waiting a week, and then I called him, and I said to him, I know what my goal is. Oh, what is it? My goal is to make a masterpiece. That was my answer. And he said, well, that's not a good enough answer, but I have to take that answer and accept it. And I think it's right. I simply want to make a masterpiece. And it's very, very simple. And when I shall make a masterpiece, I have to find a gold standard. Because I know what is the best in the museums. I have always knew that. People can brag things up, but I always know it because I have studied the Greco-Romanian culture. And everything that is going to last forever, as they say, is the Greco-Romanian culture. Even Picasso. If you see Picasso on auctions, what is the highest price? It's the highest price for its kitsch pictures, with rose and nice blue and things like that. Women that stays like this. And they get the highest price, not his revolutionary way into the art. It's just what he is, the prices for his works goes to epigone pictures of Puvis de Chavannes, the poor fisherman, and his family, which Picasso saw. And Picasso has that model for all the Blue Period pictures. And they go sky high, and you shall pay for it. The rest is, yes, okay, it's historically correct, but people don't pay so much for it in general. And that is that the Greco-Romanian quality, if you have some of that quality, you have a quality that tells something about you. It tells about what you have chosen. Because a personality is a very, very strange thing. It's just like religion in some ways. You can't really say what it is. A personality can be really grumpy, or it can be funny or something like it. Vivid, perhaps. But the personality, for me, is to have a good grip on the culture you are coming from, the Greco-Romanian culture, and then have a lot of sense for love. Because I think everything is made of love to something. Okay.
I said I'd ask 3 questions. I think I've asked 1 so far. And we're actually out of time. So I'm going to briefly summarize what we've said, or I beg your pardon, what Odd and Roger have said. First, I'm taking this one personally, being a Harley Davidson owner. Representational artists are the Hells Angels of contemporary art. I'm in. We should keep working to build our own institutions. Millionaires will come and help when we establish successful institutions. And Roger will write a book about the philosophy of representational art. I think you said that. and I hope that you'll bring it to us when you've written it and speak about it. Would you mind doing that? Odd has emphasized that we should make masterpieces. We should work to make masterpieces. So now I want to turn it over to you. I'm going to be rather strict about time at the microphone, so if you're going to ask a question, please make it very thoughtful. Keep it short so that we have the time in the hands of Odd and Roger, okay? Are you ready, Jeff, with the microphone? Awesome. If I'll start taking questions, please try and catch my attention so I can field who is in order. Okay? Ready? Go.
First off, I'm really blown away by everything I've been hearing here today. Thank you very much. Could you give us an example of artworks where someone might go and find this redemptive quality upon looking at this? If someone is trying to find something other than kitsch, are there examples of some works that you might suggest?
Well, we've several times at this conference, people have referred to Rembrandt's Prodigal Son, and in particular the way in which the hand of the father rests on the shoulder of the son, on the back of the son, as he embraces him. Many people find in that image and in the way it's executed a sense of how forgiveness can well up from within and overwhelm you and justify everything and wipe away all the trauma that has preceded it. And we know that we have to forgive, that we live in a way which often doesn't answer to that moral need. We're always selfish and always trying to get away with things. But when we confront something like that, we recognize that actually not only can we do it, but that it's right to do it, and that it has a completion which vindicates the life of the person who does it. And I think in that way, somebody who comes to that painting in the right spirit will actually be restored to his faith in his own life.
Yes, a question for Roger Scruton. I read your book, Beauty, and seen the documentary, and I just wanted to hear you comment on the fact that Herman Brock talks about the goddess of beauty in art as the goddess of kitsch.
Yeah. Well, this takes us back to that word, kitsch. Herman Brock is one of the few philosophers, well, he's a novelist, of course, he's one of the few writers to have discussed the nature of kitsch. He wanted to warn against it because he thought that kitsch was introducing a new kind of human being, the Kitschmensch, as he calls it. That new human being has a different area of experience from the rest of us, and we want to try and avoid falling into that. So when he talks about this, I think he's sounding a warning note. You know, don't be careful when you approach beauty, because unless qualified by all the things that artists would want to qualify it by, it might lead you into this trap. That's what he was saying. But this is more odds field.
Herman Brock. I wasn't really finished. I was a little bit far off. Herman Brock wrote that book, and I was reading it. That was a change in my life, because as I talked about John Wayne, I didn't want to be a hero. I want to see myself, not see myself, but I had to accept myself as the bad guy in that book. Herman Brock, Kitsch and Art. So when I followed that route and accepted that I was the bad guy, everything was correct. If I had read it with a moral ID about myself, I wouldn't see myself in it. I would say the other people are stupid and dumb in every sense of it, as he writes. I think it's quite unserious, that book. Okay. But I tried to turn it another way. I am now the bad guy. And then it was right, everything. But I mean, Herman Brock, in the same time, he goes far away than that. He talks about Tchaikovsky, for example. And he says, kitsch can be very, very good. But there is a snake here. So we can be cheated. It's very much like the religious picture of Satan, the devil, which is a problem when you read the Master and Margarita or Bulgakov, and he turns it around. Suddenly God is the devil, and the devil is God. Because the devil doesn't take any money or any things from you to get you into the hell. But God will have a lot of offer and suffer and a lot of things to if you want to get into the heaven. So of course we have a problem here. What is evil and what is good? And in our world, everything that is evil is always good, and everything that is good is always evil. Everything that is good is always bad, and everything they call bad is good. So it is in Europe. When you follow the doctrines, everything goes more or less opposite. Let's say that 75% is opposite of what it is. So there are some few, of course. There is, of course, some few art historians. I have met some of them. Nervous breakdown art historians that did a little bit personal, and they cut both the arms off these people. They had to be taxi drivers. That's a good job. But they have to know a lot of streets, of course, but sitting there. And they had education, but they did something on behalf of their own ID, and then they were off the table. They could never come back. So I have met several of these poor, you can say, poor people that lost community lost the platform or the floor under their legs, their feet, and but it's so few that they can never get power, and that is the problem with the monopoly, because now, as I have asked for you now, if it to divide them, to divide the education, because a monopoly is never good for anybody. And we have here mentally monopoly, as they had in Germany under the Second War, before the Second World War, where they have the monopoly of thinking, as they have the monopoly today in the art business, or the not art business, but the art theories, universities all over the Western world. And why I said, if you drop that monopoly and makes two houses instead of one house with a monopoly, then everything would be good. There is not very good when one firm kills the other firm, because then they can get more profit, treat people easier. But if you have a defender on the other side that defends themselves against you, you get a free market in some ways. And I think it's mentally the same. So monopoly is very bad, as you have seen Hitler and Stalin. That, as I have to say, and that's very bad, that they had Hegel as the great, great, great system builder. He was a son of a bureaucrat with a high position, and you can feel the path from his background into his philosophy, as you can feel with Kant, that got all these artists into the artis liberalis, to be fine university people, because his father was just a sail maker. He was a handcraft man, and therefore Kant had no respect for handcraft. He has written it several times. So the point here, what about stopping that monopoly? I'm coming back to that again and again, because there must be a solution. Okay.
This is a perfect moment. I was wondering how I was going to get back to my topic. Monopoly is, you're expressing this frustration. You and I, Roger and Odd and I, and many of us are old men, but there's an energy among the young people that are picking up this movement. We're pretty well agreed. We're preaching to the choir about what we love, about what we do, what we want to do. We're frustrated at institutions, monopolies that are blocking people's access to what we want to do. Don't forget, aside from this conference, which brings together this small, relatively small group of zealots, one of the things that's knit us together in 18 months is the internet. And today, the internet is not a monopoly. There are many forces that want the internet to be a monopoly as well. But this is a moment where if we include in the spectrum of the things that we want to do and take advantage of the young people in this movement who are much more tech.
Is there a question here?
The question is, have you thought about broad, communications, something like the internet, to go around, run around these monopolies that are holding the communications power, to put our work in front of masses of people? If our work is as good as we think it is,
thank you. Let's let them answer the question. Response to that, Roger?
Yes, the answer. I have thought about it. I think that, of course, this is the great positive side of the internet, that it enables us to bypass all the monopolies and make direct contact with those of sympathetic feeling and create those virtual communities which can't be easily invaded or controlled by the establishment. And that's a great thing. But it has its downside, because art is not about that kind of communication. Art is a face-to-face encounter with a particular object or a particular work of music or literature, and this is something which the internet slightly detracts from, because it makes communication too easy.
I had a question particularly about culture and wondering why we see so many American artists who will paint the pretty landscapes, and the things that are very superficial, but not talk about the deeper issues of what it means to be human. And I wonder what you both think about if it might be a lack of depth in American culture, or where this is coming from.
You are talking about plein air.
Or just like pretty
Yes.
portraits, pretty things.
Yes, and that's fine. I mean, Vermeer did a lot of pretty things, but it's perhaps the most difficult in the world. It's the same as with Oscar Wilde, that says that to have a role as natural is the most difficult role you can have. If you see that landscape or seascape by Vermeer, that I think is one of the most fantastic landscapes. If you have that as a number one in your mind, then you can reach quite reasonable things that is on a good level, I think. So I think that's wonderful, that the plein air, that people are working with plein air, because that's just beauty, but extremely boring after all. What I think is that you have a life, and what is the best in this? What is the best picture? What is the best object in this world? And if you took all these paintings, let's say paintings, all these paintings, then I think you would end with some of the last pictures of Rembrandt and some of the last pictures of Titian and Santa Anna of Da Vinci and two of the last Pietas of Michelangelo that is more or less cut apart, Pieta Palestrina, Pieta Rondanini, and that would be the top of everything, I think. So we have this strange situation here, because if you look at these late works, you can see that it's just like it's made of the same person. They have no personality anymore. Rembrandt is not a Hollandaise painter anymore. Titian is not an Italiano painter. And Michelangelo is not that restless builder, like that. And so suddenly you find a sort of humanity that is just the same in all these trees' work. And if you have an exhibition with them, some of the pictures you would say, no, but isn't that Rembrandt? No, it's Titian. Because Rembrandt was the finest pupil of Titian that Titian ever had. Even Titian was dead when Rembrandt was born. So his change in life was that a count from a very, very noble man from England. He had to fly because of Charles I, and Cromwell took over, so he took with him some of his collection. And it was this big picture of Titian named Flying on Marshes. And that is a remarkable picture, because it's what you call a hole in the wall, or a beauty, ugly, beauty, ugly, beauty, ugly. You can't really say, but it's very dirty. I call it the dirty pictures of Tiziano, the latest. And the house of the Lord was open, so the painters in Holland could come and visit and see that picture. And after Rembrandt had seen that picture, he suddenly understood that if I paint things quite rubbish on this side in the darkness, nobody has very much interest. And then I make light on that, and then everybody in some way are treated to look this way. It's a sort of a dancing with light to, you can say, seduce the viewer's eyes in some ways. And you can see the crown on King Midas that had such a bad fate. It's just like Rembrandt. It's extremely like Rembrandt. You would believe it was Rembrandt that has made that golden crown he had. So Rembrandt had no idea about time in that way, because he wanted to paint as well as Apelles, which was the god of that time. And Apelles was written about by Plinius, that died under Vesuvius, that Vesuvius tragedy. But Plinius has written about the Greek paintings and has written about Apelles as the greatest of them. And it states there that he was very rough when he painted and used very few colors, just vermilion, yellow, ochre, black and white. And with these two colors, and black and white, they could do everything. So the last part of Rembrandt, he used that palette. I can see it in the picture in Kassel. It's just the same. So if you open up, you begin with something, plein air, for example, but it's opportunities to continue, because here we are talking about a universe of qualities that I can see the art historians doesn't really see. So if they have a book about Titian, they don't care about the latest picture of Titian, that the rough macchiata pictures, that is rough. And also, for example, Rembrandt, well, they take care of him, but they are not really there to understand the quality when you come up on that level. And Jan Overtu and I, we have made a system. You can say it's a little bit like two boys in a boys' room, but I think it's right. The first level is the egocentrism. I must find myself. That is the highest level in the Hegel system, that I will find myself. That's what he says in a little bit other words, but it's the same. The next after the egocentric is the geocentric. That's, you see the world around you. That is plein air. You can see the beautiful hills, you can paint it like that, and it looks fine. But at the same time, you describe the neighborhood's property. You describe the rich man's property, or the state that has confiscated some property. But you are in some way a map where you can see it in a normal perspective and not a perspective from a bird's eye. Many good painters in the history are geocentric. That means they see the world here, like Velázquez, like Sargent, like Zorn. And then you go on another level, that is the highest level, and that is the heliocentric. That means you see it from the sun side. You see everything from above, and there you have Da Vinci's Santa Anna. And if you put it together, you see it so clear. If you take a picture of Sotin or Picasso or something, and you have the picture of Velázquez here, and you have the picture of Da Vinci here, it's obvious. And you have to understand it in a way that you have to say, okay, here am I, what should I do? This is a sort of a challenge, which is really, I mean, people could make suicide if they saw it directly, because it's so horrible. But it's the fact, and everybody can see it, they can compare. So I say to the pupils, compare. First you must do is to compare. but because then you see it. And Jano and I had some strange, absurd in many ways, but very interesting comparing system where we have all this great here, and the next, of course, here, and on the bottom you have the modernism, more or less. And you have, on the top, you have all this, and they are all dark. Da Vinci is also one of the darkest of the people from the Renaissance. Dark. Caravaggio, Rembrandt, Leonardo da Vinci, Kitsch, at the best they are dark. Very little colors. Because of inspiration from Apelles, which didn't exist. Because nobody has seen an Apelles picture since the iconoclastic in 1800 after Christ. They have seen nothing of him. Plinius talks about several pictures from the antique world, and that is a portrait also of Alexander the Great. And that was portraits like this, I think perhaps on panel or something, but it was portrait that was hanged up, like we see Van Dyck or Velázquez. And you can't argue against it if you compare. You can use a lot of art historian things that it's right to do it in that time and blah, blah, blah. But time doesn't exist in this world. And we know all that the only time we care about is our own age or our children's age. The other time is just a metaphysic thing. The world, the planet doesn't care about time. So you can say that if you look at it, you can see that the culture stuck you into the most fanatic decisions that has nothing to do with life. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please join me in thanking Roger Scruton and Odd Nerdrum?